Hey folks, we're OS Reviews. You're watching our video first look and a quick review of the SoundBot SB571PRO, also known as the QUADIO satellite wireless Bluetooth speakers. Now you're seeing that we have two of these here because these are actually multi-link Bluetooth speakers, and so it's designed where you can purchase multiple sets and it can connect and sync music information between the speakers up to 4. So if you're creating a home cinema environment, you can set up a speaker in each corner and they will connect to each other, and then of course one of them will connect to your phone. So you get an extremely immersive 3D sound for gaming and watching movies. You can purchase these separately and it acts just like any other stereo Bluetooth speaker, but the fun really comes when you get them in sets. Now, they're not cheap. Just because they have this proprietary technology, you can get an individual speaker for roughly $55. You can get it slightly lower cost if you purchase it in a set of 2 or 4. So otherwise, let's take a closer look at the packaging. Pretty simple and straightforward. It is a, again, stereo speaker with a passive radiator in the center for added bass, and it uses Bluetooth version 4.1 technology to wirelessly connect to your phone, tablet, or computer. And it features two 50mm drivers on board, so 5 watts. And otherwise, these are also water resistant and shock absorbent. So they're also classified as rugged speakers. That's pretty cool. That means you can take them outdoors, take it to the beach, and it should still survive your drops and slight splashes. It uses simply micro USB for power and even features a built-in microphone that you can use to answer or reject phone calls with once paired with a smartphone. And it has a, again, rechargeable battery that will last you for a little under 10 hours of continuous music playback on a single charge, and it will work when plugged into power at all times, which is also pretty cool. So let's take a look at just what's in one of these boxes, since it's going to be the same in the other. You can also use this as a traditional auxiliary or wired speaker if you don't want to use Bluetooth and connect it to an MP3 player or some type of home cinema setup. It works pretty well for that. And it looks like there's a carrying pouch included in the box, which is pretty cool as an added bonus. That does make sense considering the price here is steeper than your average mini stereo Bluetooth speaker. That's probably closer to $25 or $30. So this is, you're definitely paying a bit more of a premium for the extras as well as that multi-link technology. In here, there's access to a micro USB cable for power and the auxiliary cable located on the top. It takes roughly 2 hours to completely charge, and then you have a series of pamphlets and instruction manuals that documents how to set it up and pair it. Finally, there's just the speaker itself, and that's it. So if we take a closer look at the design and hardware of the speaker first, it definitely has a very striking look. It has these prism-like patterns that reminds me of kind of the early Jawbone by Jabra wireless Bluetooth headset, something like the HTC Touch Diamond that has really this modern look, and it certainly is different and seems eye-catching enough. It's made out of aluminum on all of these sides and then soft touch rubber accents on the sides as well. Definitely a very interesting shape. Looks like a abstract or modern art. Bottom features the SoundBot logo. The side here are where all the ports are located. There's actually a screen protector on here. And this is a shiny, glossy material that gives you access to the volume. There's also play pause for pairing, volume, power on off. There's a microphone here, LED status light, and auxiliary input, and a micro USB for power. I'm not sure I'm a huge fan of the placement of these controls only on one side. I kind of wish they would be on the top just for easier tapping if you're just not looking super closely. This kind of forces you to pick it up and then toggle between these keys, which are a little bit small, but they do work and they're, again, pretty tactile and responsive. Microphone, again, I wish I would be on the side here because that's the most natural position instead of turning it over to talk. But it works for speakerphone calls. Now, it's not completely symmetric. You can see there are some asymmetric elements that you'll either love it, you either won't, but it definitely makes the speaker look very unique. There is a regular version of the SoundBot S71 that's without the SoundLInk technology. It's just a regular stereo speaker that retails for under $25. So if you don't want the ability to connect to multiple of these at the same time, then there is a cheaper version available. So that's something to keep in mind. So pairing it up with a phone is relatively simple. You just turn it onto the on position and tap on the pairing key for a few seconds, and then find the device on your phone, and then it's done. Now, this becomes the metaphorical master speaker. And now if you want to connect additional sets, these are the slave speakers. And what you do is you turn these slave speakers on after the master has been paired, and then you long hold on the volume down and pairing keys at the same time for a few seconds. And how you can tell if one is a master of a pair, if one is a slave, is that the master will be flashing continuously when music is playing, whereas the slave speakers will have a continuously glowing LED that won't be flashing at all. So the setup itself is fairly straightforward. It's the same technology that you find in true wireless earphones or true wireless earbuds, like the Apple AirPods, and how everything communicates between each other. Afterwards, I can just tap on play for a quick music test. And you can hear how music is indeed coming through on both of the speakers. So, for instance, so again, you definitely hear that again, sound is coming out from both sides. Now, that's the good part. Audio quality on itself seems to be pretty good. The con is that the connection technology seems to be a little bit shaky at the moment. Sometimes it fades in, it fades out, and you can hear that the slave speaker is a little bit inconsistent. After about 30 seconds or so of continuous playback, it seems to have a bit of a pause before it continues. It's not a huge deal, you still get a very immersive experience, but it's not quite as seamless and 100% working as something, like an Apple AirPod, for instance. There is a little bit of disturbance. Alright, so pausing the music there, I would say that as far as the Bluetooth speakers go, they pack a decent amount of bass. There's a passive radiator you can kind of make out in between the left and right channels of the speakers. And, paired individually to a Bluetooth device, the speakers sound great. If you link them up, they still sound good, but they aren't multiplicatively as good. So again, the slave speakers will often have a bit more of static. They often will cut out intermittently between the audio playback, so it isn't as seamless as, connecting, let's say, them individually to a phone or to a tablet. So that's just something to consider. It's a little bit of a downside. Otherwise, they pack quite a good amount of volume, so if you have it at maximum volume, in that demo we were only about at 40%, they definitely fill up spaces like a living room or a party environment without any issues at all, since they are quite rugged. Something I like about the design that I didn't really mention previously is how the speakers can essentially tilt at multiple angles. So this interesting shape allows you to either put it kind of flat like this, where you have the speakers kind of angled upwards and the sound is able to dissipate better through the room, or I can put it in a more traditional position where the speaker is just facing flat at 90 degrees. I can also put it, of course, upwards. So there's a lot of angles to play around with that really does make this kind of different from other Bluetooth speakers from a design perspective. Microphone also works quite good for phone calls. I would say you would want to be indoors as opposed to outdoors or in super loud environments, because it does have a tendency to pick up the background sound as well. Even though these are pretty good in terms of bass, I wouldn't say they're bass heavy or bass rich compared to larger speakers we've seen by Archer, the bamboo speaker, for instance, and even SoundBot has other speakers that arguably punches more in the lower frequency. So if you're listening to EDM music, you may want a little bit more that these don't quite give you, although they already sound pretty good without that much distortion, and they fare well for, again, watching movies as well as for casual music listening. For a living room environment where you want to connect 2 or 4, I can definitely see the appeal. The concept is really fascinating, and it doesn't necessarily separate the sound by channel, so it's not fancy enough to know that this is going to be the left, this is going to be the right, so it doesn't do that, but it pops out the sound at multiple locations and again amplifies the overall volume. So that's the effect that you get, and again, it does work decently. So it's not perfect. I think that the technology still needs a little refinement as far as the overall quality is concerned, just because, again, it does cut in and cut out, and that seems to be a common complaint when I searched this up earlier. So it's not just my test unit that's come into this issue. But regardless, the sound quality individually sounds very good. I like the design, I like the rugged build, and for the price point, I think this is a fair speaker with some extra features that you may want to consider looking into. So you can check out more details about these in our official written review, but for now, this has been our video. Thanks for watching here at OS Reviews. This has been the SoundBot SB571PRO Series wireless Bluetooth speakers.